Hello, everyone. Welcome. I'm James Milan, and this is the Town Manager Update for this week. I am with Adam Chapdelaine, our Town Manager, looking good in his suit. I'm glad you remembered how to tie a tie there, Adam.
I still managed the full Windsor this morning, so I was happy I could remember how to do it.
Well done. Good muscle memory, because it's been a while. So we're going to start where we always do, and seems like where we always will. At this point, and that is with the COVID numbers in town. Not a big change, not a dramatic change from when we spoke last week, but nonetheless, the same direction. The numbers keep inching up.
Correct. Yeah, I would say in town, we have stabilized a bit as opposed to our conversation last week. Health and Human Services Director Christine Barngeno had done some analysis, and it does seem that we were experiencing a local spike, perhaps based on some gatherings that occurred about 3 weeks ago now, and those numbers seem to have gone down. After that, what the potential for things that may or may not have happened on Halloween holds for next week remains to be seen. But locally, I think we've stabilized. However, the state continues to be in an increasingly perilous position. I think a lot of people missed this for a good reason earlier this week, but on Tuesday, on Election Day, the state reported over 1,600 new cases, which is a very high number as compared to where we've been recently. So things do continue to progress in a negative direction for the state. And I think that's why the governor made a very strong and a move that I applaud earlier this week to strengthen his mask order and make it a mandate. To put the curfew in place from 10 p.m. to 5 a.m., to limit gatherings to 25 people outdoor and 10 people indoor, to really try to curb the transmission. I certainly can't speak for the governor's administration, but my understanding is they're growing more and more concerned about where this trend could lead in terms of hospital capacity. From the governor's own words in a call I was on with him and others, he feels like we're fortunate to have what he described as runway. In terms of being able to act now and make the impacts we want to make to try to not have our hospitals be overwhelmed later this year. So I think it's important for residents to either go to mass.gov or arlingtonma.gov and make sure they're fully informed about what the governor's orders and changes in restrictions are, and for them to comply with them. I think Arlington's been doing a tremendous job in terms of mask compliance and compliance in general, but again, as we enter this period, the better we can do at compliance, I think the better off we'll all be.
Two quick questions, Adam. One related to the state and the new policies. You mentioned the curfew as one of those, and I'm wondering, what is the thinking behind that? Is that basically to curtail poor decision making later in the evening, or how does that work? Or how is it expected to work? Excuse me.
I think it is really focused on trying to dissuade younger people from partying. I don't know that anybody has really explicitly said that, but we certainly know the population that is seeing the largest number of transmission or virus contraction are the younger populations. We also know the stats are showing that a good deal of that's coming from private gatherings. So my understanding is it's almost entirely focused on getting people home with their their family unit or whoever it is they live with, and not at larger gatherings.
Okay, thanks for that. And just one quick question about the Arlington data. I'm not sure if there is anything to discern from this, but I noticed in looking at the numbers for this week that virtually all the rise in numbers, and we're only talking about five to seven or so, but they all occurred within the 30 to 50 age range. Is there anything to take from things like that? Is that simply just a kind of arbitrary how it happened to go this week? Or do you or the Board of Health look at those numbers and kind of tailor messages or policies in reaction to something like that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we know the answer for sure yet, but our early ideas are that younger people were contracting it a few weeks ago and then bringing it home to the people they live with. So I think we're seeing a little bit of both of those things in that number, right? The 30 on the younger end, 50 more maybe on the parent end, where younger people contracting it, bringing it home to their families. And I think we're still trying to hammer home the private gatherings where we think the transmission is happening, so that they're not bringing it to their household. I mean, the biggest number on the state's charts for transmission is household transmission, but it's not starting in the household, right? It's not somebody's getting it through another activity and bringing it into their household. So I think our messaging is really trying to focus on avoiding those activities that could give it to you as an individual and thereby bring it back to your household.
We have a few staples in these weekly updates that we do, and obviously we always start in a fairly sobering place with talking about COVID. It's nice to be able to often talk about sustainability issues and sustainability programs in progress here in town, as a somewhat of a tonic or a counterbalance. And so I understand that you've got a message for our residents this week as well.
Yeah, so I did want to mention this week, we have been working for a long time on our net zero plan. And we're trying to work towards finalizing that either close to the end of this calendar year or maybe just over the cross of the calendar year. But right now, what we have open is a virtual open house where residents can review the tenets of the plan or the recommended tenets of the plan and give feedback before the plan is finalized. And really, so this net zero plan is not just for the town government, but for the town as a whole to try to impact buildings, transportation, really anything that drives our carbon footprint. And some of these things will be very big. They either big from a policy point of view or potentially an expenditure point of view. And they're big, but they're important. And I would say almost crucial for our future success. But we need buy-in. We want buy-in and we want feedback to make sure it's successful. So it's open until November 15th, the virtual open house. You can access it through the town website. And we really hope a good number of people can engage with us because we want this to be a plan that's has notoriety in the community. We want people to know about it and to know that this effort is happening. We're working hard to get this plan together to try to become net zero by 2050. There's an active group in town pushing us to be more aggressive to achieve a net zero status before 2050. I don't think there's opposition to that. I think there's concern about a pathway to getting there with existing technology. But I'm happy that we have advocates in the community that are pushing us in that direction. And we're actually starting to collaborate with them now, how we can do our best to make this plan as effective as possible.
Well, right after that deadline on November 15th, as you mentioned, comes November 16th, which is the opening of town meeting at this very unusual time in the fall. And I remember you saying last week when we touched on this that it felt a little bit, in terms of making the arrangements for this virtual town meeting, that it felt a little bit like you're, repairing the plane while it's in the air here. But just wanted to get an update. We're a week closer and a week further into developing, the plan. What is the update for town meeting?
So I would start by saying it's become more and more clear. Now, we already knew this, but more and more clear on just how lucky we are to have this amazing team of volunteers and staff that are making it happen. They've now put on a number of trainings for town meeting members, all leading up to what will be a mock town meeting and then eventually town meeting on November 16th. So I certainly don't want to become overconfident, but I think by the work of these volunteers and the staff, it's really been, we've really come a long way. I think we've built confidence among town meeting members, amongst the staff and volunteers that are operating it. And I think we're putting ourselves in a better and better position to be successful starting on the 16th. So that's from sort of a platform point of view. From a process point of view, the ARB just issued its report and its recommended actions and votes for those articles that were before it. The select board basically closed their hearing process last night, have a few further final votes and comments to finalize on Monday evening, and they'll be done with their report. The Finance Committee, I believe it's done with its hearing process and working to finalize its report. So there'll be a lot more data becoming available to town meeting members in the upcoming days into next week. So that hopefully we have everything in line from both that platform point of view of how we're going to conduct town meeting, and then from the process point of view in terms of the recommendations coming from the key bodies in town. And yeah, I think we'll if all things stay on plan, we'll be ready to go on November 16th and hopefully learn our way through this new way of conducting town meeting.
Yeah, and what you were mentioning about the process there and reports coming in from the various bodies, that sounds like it's in line with how things, line that usually is leading into a town meeting in terms of, folks getting these ready and getting them out to town meeting members. So keeping our fingers crossed that all goes smoothly from here. We'll check in with you one more time next week, obviously, about this, and then we'll be into town meeting itself. Um, Nobody, I don't think, can ignore we touch on one last subject here. I don't think anybody can ignore the fact that we all remain in suspense about the presidential election on a national, in terms of on a national scale. Um, in Arlington, no such uncertainty exists. I think that the vote, from what I understand, election day went quite smoothly, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on it.
From everything I have heard, it went exceptionally smoothly. About 85% turnout, which is about 2% higher than 2016. So really a tremendous voter turnout in Arlington. And I think that's reflective of much of the state and the country in terms of the turnout for this election. But locally, I mean, much like the team we have doing town meeting, just so lucky to have the team in the clerk's office, the select board's office, all the poll workers, the facility staff, the DPW staff, the Health and Human Services staff that came together, not just on Tuesday, but over the course of really almost the past month leading up to this, to make sure that we had accessible ballot boxes, that we conducted early voting safely, that the polling places on Tuesday were established safely and so that business could be conducted in a safe and fair manner. And I'm humbled by the amazing team that we have here in Arlington. Our really excellent new town clerk, Julie Brazil, just jumped right in, like I mean, she didn't hit the ground running. She hit the ground sprinting, like Carl Lewis sprinting, and did an exceptional job. So I think Arlingtonians have a lot to be proud of that. In the face of all of this tension and concern and consternation, Arlington conducted a safe, free, and fair election here locally.
Yay for us.
Yeah.
Adam, anything else that we should touch on before we let you go?
No, I do think I know I briefly mentioned it, that all reports did point to a very safely conducted Halloween here in Arlington. And I think that's another big thank you to both Arlington Health and Human Services for putting out guidance, but also residents for heeding that guidance and keeping themselves and their families safe.
Yeah, it does seem like we have a pretty good thing going in town in terms of both great guidance coming from our leadership and then great compliance and cooperation coming from the residents. So let's keep it up. All right. Thank you very much, as usual, for your time. We appreciate it, and we'll talk to you again next week. I have been talking to Adam Chapdelaine, our town manager, and I'm James Milan, and we will see you next week as well. Thank you.